This one is directed by Koki Giedrich, or however it's pronounced, and is adapted from a novel by the author herself. And the story here follows a young aspiring writer played by Beanie Feldstein, probably best known from Booksmart, and it takes place in the early 90s Britain. And this young woman is sort of bored with her life and this working class environment. And she's looking for an adventure, or just a way to get out of there, basically. But she's a bit more on the shy and awkward side and not really that outgoing. So she decides to reinvent herself and come up with this alternative persona. At the same time, she also attempts to make her way into the music industry as a music critic, and all of that brings with it all sorts of fun stuff and more or less makes up for the story here. A story that I found to be fun and entertaining. However, it did come across as a bit unrealistic, I guess. It had some strong fantasy vibes to it, like it was more of a scenario dreamt up by a teenage girl than actual real life. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I did feel like I had to suspend my disbelief and just go with it. Because at the end of the day, the protagonist is just a teenager, and it does seem very unlikely to me that she'd have the success that she has, and that she'd become essentially a rock star in her own right. But then I did a little bit of looking into the source material, which I thought was just a straight up fictional novel. And yeah, it is fiction, but apparently it's semi-autobiographical, and the author did become a journalist too. So I'm wondering how much of it is actually true and how much of it is made up. Because as I said, the story here does feel a bit fantastical and exaggerated. But at the same time, does that really matter? Well, I don't think so, but it does make me wonder. Because the scenario portrayed here isn't exactly outside the realms of possibility either. And stranger things have happened, so I'm kinda curious to know how much is actually true. But either way, I found the story to be rather fun and entertaining, and it managed to hold my attention. And a lot of that had to do with the writing itself, because I thought this was a fairly amusing movie. Now, I wouldn't say it had a lot of laugh out loud moments, but it had a lot of smirk-inducing ones. It also had a lot of charm to it, and I especially thought Beanie Feldstein was great in this. Although I thought pretty much all the supporting cast, especially the family, was really good too. I mean, the mom, for instance, who has very little screen time, did a great job with what she was given. She was probably the one who stood out the most to me here, and yeah, I liked her performance a lot. But I do also have to say that this was rather well put together as a whole too. Well directed and edited, and I liked the little creative flair that was thrown into the mix every now and again. Just a few things here and there, like her wall of inspiration was a fun little touch. But I will say that it felt like the pacing was maybe a little bit off, to be honest. Because it's not a long movie, but toward the end it did start to feel longer than it actually was. And I'm not exactly sure why, but maybe it just tried to cram one too many things in there. Like one too many plot points or whatnot, and that sort of maybe dragged it out a little bit. Because there is actually quite a lot going on in this, and maybe it could have been trimmed down and tightened up a bit. But that's pretty much my only real complaint, and it wasn't even a huge issue. And other than that, I really enjoyed this, so how about it? Would I recommend this? Sure, why not? It's just a fairly light-hearted and fun little movie with a certain amount of heart too. So maybe give it a look, or you could just skip it. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic. And if you like, you can also support me on Patreon or PayPal through the links in the description. And as always, I appreciate you and thanks for watching.